Tax day, for those who did not do it, it was April 18th this year instead of April 15th because the 15th fell on a Saturday. And anytime a deadline falls on a Saturday or Sunday, the IRS pushes the due date to the following Monday, which would have been April 17th. However, Emancipation Day was observed in Washington, D.C. on April 17th this year, which pushed tax day back to Tuesday, April 18th. Except for people living in disaster areas in Alabama, California, and Georgia, everyone needed to file their taxes by April 18th of this year. But even though there were years when tax day may fall on a different day than the usual April 15th, there is one fact about taxes that is unchanged year after year, but is always overlooked in the immigration debate. And that is that experts estimate that undocumented immigrants pay billions and billions and billions of dollars. I didn't say millions, I said billions upon billions upon billions of dollars in federal taxes annually between tax returns filed and taxes deducted from their paychecks. And there are three good reasons why an immigrant who is undocumented would want to pay taxes. One, shows you're complying with the federal tax laws. Because if you're working undocumented, or whether documented or not, you're working undocumented, you're working against your visa, you have no visa, the law requires you to pay taxes on the income you earn in the United States. Two, so everybody who works, green card, no green card, visa, no visa, entered without inspection, got to pay your taxes. So if you do it, you're complying with the law. Two, paying taxes can help demonstrate good moral character if you're undocumented and later have an opportunity to legalize your immigration status via adjustment of status. Because whenever you file an adjustment of status application, you always have to prove good moral character. And if you work and don't pay your taxes, that could be a reason for the immigration officers to say you do not have good moral character. And paying taxes could also be used to document work history and presence in the United States, steps that may help you be eligible for legal immigration status in the future. If lawmakers ever pass any immigration reform, the immigration reform is going to be, you had to be here by a certain date. And what better way to prove you were here by that date than you were here filing taxes on that date? Now, critics of illegal immigration have long argued that undocumented immigrants who pay taxes are able to do so because they're using stolen Social Security numbers. But millions of federal tax dollars are paid every year by people who were granted Social Security numbers validly. Either they were here on all different types of visas and then they fell out of status. They filed adjustment applications that got denied, but their Social Security numbers are valid. And even as many or more tax returns are being filed by undocumented immigrants who don't have a Social Security number at all, but instead are using something known as the ITIN number, the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. The Bipartisan Policy Center, a Washington-based think tank, notes that most experts believe the vast majority of returns filed with ITINs today are filed by undocumented immigrants. Some non-citizens who legally immigrate to the United States also pay taxes using this method if they have not had their Social Security numbers issued to them yet. In 2019, according to the IRS, more than 2.5 million tax returns were filed using ITINs, accounting for $6 billion in taxes collected by the U.S. government. That's $6 billion filed by undocumented immigrants working undocumented in the United States following the law. In addition to tax return filings, officials estimate that undocumented immigrants also contribute billions and billions and billions of dollars to Social Security annually through payroll tax deductions. For example, in 2010, the Social Security Administration estimated that payments from unauthorized workers accounted for about $12 billion in Social Security tax revenue. Immigrant rights advocates' posts on social media during tax season have drawn attention to the issue. The National Immigration Law Center wrote in a series of recent posts, undocumented immigrants pay billions in taxes to fund programs they can't even access. Jose Antonio Vargas, the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist turned activist who turned his struggles as an undocumented immigrant into a platform for advocacy, wrote in 2019 on Twitter, "Yes, undocumented immigrants are helping fund the very system that detains and eventually deports us." In fact, a new study from the Cato Institute found that over the next 30 years, immigrants will pay more in taxes than they will even consume in benefits. This net positive flow in tax contributions shows that immigrants will continue to play an outsized role in supporting public services like schools, safety net programs such as nutrition assistance programs, and even Social Security. Like we just said, undocumented immigrants funded $12 billion in Social Security payments just in the year 2010. Analysis of the 2021 American Community Survey shows that immigrant-led households paid $524 billion in taxes in 2021. This includes $346 billion in federal income taxes and $178 billion in state and local taxes. And these tax contributions from legal immigrants made up 15.9% of total tax revenue the government receives from U.S. residents in 2021. Yet immigrants only make up 13% of U.S. households. So immigrants are paying almost 16% of the total gross tax revenue to the United States that they receive from individual people, yet only make up 13% of the population. Thus, immigrants is a plus for the United States, not a negative. Importantly, Cato's paper also notes that the second-generation immigrants tend to have even a higher level of education than their parents. The results of the Cato model indicate that the taxes paid and earnings received, as well as benefits consumed by individual immigrants, is highly dependent on their age of arrival and education. Now, according to their estimates, an individual with less than a high school education who comes to the United States at age 25 will still have a positive fiscal impact of $216,000 when not including their descendants. Immigrants are also more likely to be working age than U.S.-born residents, increasing levels of education among recent arrivals. It is clear that immigrants are net contributors to these programs and the tax base at large, helping keep safety net programs accessible to those who need them. The bottom line, according to all of these different studies, and I want to point it out during tax season or right after tax season, that immigrants and immigration are a net positive to the United States. Immigrants pay a larger majority of their taxes as a tax base than the average American. Thanks for watching. For more Brad Show Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.